Welcome. We're so glad that you all came today. Welcome to those who are live streaming as well, who couldn't be with us. Today's a little bit of a different type of service. We're continuing our Latinx Heritage Month celebrations, and my TDP cohort had the opportunity to go to Chiapas together. And in that time, we were able to look at things that were sacred to different people in different ways, and it's beautiful. And so this service is designed today in a way to bring some of that to share with you. We couldn't bring it all because it's just too full, but hopefully you will feel and see some of that sacredness in what we're doing today. Hugh Shee once said, "What is sacred among one people may be ridiculous in another, and what is despised or rejected by one cultural group may in a different environment become the cornerstone for a great edifice of strange grandeur and beauty." In the next moment, just take a few seconds, we won't take real long, and think about what's sacred to you as we lead into our call to worship. Thank you. Join me in our call to worship today. We remember, O God, 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 we remember in every time and place the saints who have shown us the love of God in the past and present. We remember God's beautiful creation and community, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Thank you. Also, we will have incense come through. This back door is open. If it happens to bother you, this door goes to the outside.
During our time in Chiapas, Mexico, we were blessed to be led in devotion throughout the week. Pastor Martin was one of the pastors who walked with us through our journey and introduced us to ministries that were happening down there. And one of the songs that he taught us in his devotion is a song that Diana and I are going to lead everybody into now. Nada es imposible para ti. And it was powerful to sit in this place and to talk about the community, to talk about things that were happening there and the ministry that was happening there, and then to be reminded that we do not need to fear. We don't need to doubt. We don't need to be afraid that nothing is impossible with God. So we'll go through the song, and then we'll sing it again as we have a time of prayer in just a little bit. And we invite you to join us as you feel so led. Porque tengo miedo, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo, si nada es imposible para ti. nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti.
Take a moment to help you connect a little bit more with our experience. I'd like to draw your attention to the two pictures on the side. It's also on the front of your program if you can't see it. At our trip to Chiapas, we had the privilege of learning about Mayan culture and spirituality, especially the way they honor their elders or ancestors. I don't have to tell you that if you've lived for any length of time, you have loved, you have lost, and you have grieved. In this space, we learned the very meaningful practice of honoring our ancestors. In the eyes of Mayan culture, to remember is to honor. So I will briefly tell you what each color represents on these photos. First, as you have experienced, was the charcoal lighting of the incense, which represents the purification process. In this space, we readied ourselves. Next, we lit the white candles. And ironically, they stuck in the ground. That was fascinating to me. The red represents the blood in each of us. It is the element of fire. Yellow represents the fertility of men and women. With yellow, we make petitions for an abundant harvest. It represents where seeds are kept. Purple represents obscurity, where our ancestors rest. They now help us through their wisdom. We are to remember the things they told us and acknowledge them favorably. They are with us in spirit through their words. Black in Mayan culture is not a bad color. It represents how we all rest in obscurity to start our days again. It also symbolizes the hair of the people. Hair is called one's glory in the Bible. And on a side note, I didn't see many Bibles, but they acted out the scriptures, so that was really a blessing to me. North represents good spirituality. It is a space to ask for rain, white corn, and everything we need. As far as the colored candles, green represents the earth. It is where we sit, stand, and walk. The original people recognized the earth as sacred. We contaminate it, we pollute it, yet God still waters it. It gives us food, shelter, mountains, trees, and water spouts. Blue represents the sky and the heart of God. When prayer happens, blue and green meet. These are called moments of unity. God is our Father. The earth is our mother because we were taken from it. That is where the term Mother Earth comes from. The white candle represents the hummingbird. They are healers and bringers of love and joy. The purple candle represents the land and the fact that we are all in relation to others. The orange candle represents energy, strength, and endurance. It tells us a lot about ourselves from the time we are babies. The red candle represents the heart, the internal and external part of us. It is the connection of the heart of God in all of us. All interactions were designed so that people could open their hearts in sincere conversation. Ancestors have the wisdom for our community. The dead are the messengers for the living. They are first in the circle. God is in the center, and then the rest of humanity. Finally, in Mayan spirituality, in all they do, they believe, think from the heart, hear from the heart, speak from the heart. Thank you. Nicole.
Thank you, Diana. So as we face this world and the heart issues of this world, we are asking for the wisdom of our ancestors. So at this moment, we will ask that each of you will come up and grab a candle and light that candle as you think about someone that you would like to honor, and stick it in the sandbox. I'm going to start to show you what we're doing, and then please follow.
Porque tengo miedo, si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti. Nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo miedo. Si nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti. Nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, porque tengo duda. Si nada es imposible para ti, nada es imposible para ti, Nada es imposible para ti. 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 Nada es imposible para ti.
Comes from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 through 19. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. This is the word of the Lord.
Have you ever lamented something that you've lost? Have you ever struggled to let go of something from your past? The prophet Isaiah says, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past, but there are some things in my past that I want to hold on to. There are people and places and memories that I love and that I want to keep close to me. And when I'm missing something or someone, it's like my whole body conspires to hold on. Like when you wake up in the morning. Hair's a mess, pillows all over the place. Before your brain is fully awake, before your eyes are even open, you get these lightning-fast flashes, these split seconds where you think that thing or that person that you love is still there waiting for you to wake up and start your day, and then you remember the truth. That grief is hard. Change is hard, and sometimes we get so stuck on our loss, so lost in our grief, that we're unable to see when good things are coming to us. The Lord says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it?" Well, no. Sometimes I don't perceive it. I think the people of Israel knew a thing or two about this as well. Isaiah calls them the deaf and blind people of Israel, who have become so mired in their grief and their loss, so stuck in the wilderness and the wasteland, that they can't see or perceive a way forward. To the exiled people of Judah and Babylon, our God seemed like a defeated God. As they looked around at their war-torn streets, their sacred objects pillaged or destroyed by the Babylonians, this tiny kingdom of Judah had lost their political independence, and now they were losing their cultural and religious identity too. It was hard to find any hope among the ruins. They were having a really hard time buying into any salvation story from this very defeated, depressing, disenchanting God of the wasteland. I think the prophet Isaiah knew that if he had any hope of holding on to his people, he had to paint them a new picture. In their minds, he had to change how they viewed God and bring them back to hope. He knew that without hope, they would never survive their oppressive situation. So he calls upon their historical memory, their collective memory. He calls upon their ancestors. He tells them of his confidence in the Lord's resume. The Lord, Yahweh is a God who shapes and creates, who saves and redeems. He reminds them, "See, the former things have come to pass. I am the Lord who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings out chariot and horse, army and warrior." He's reminding them of what God did for them through the Exodus. God did it once, God can do it again. Remember, he says. And then in these very next verses, he tells them to forget. Remember, but don't dwell. Don't dwell on the past. I think Isaiah knew something about how our brains keep tricking us back to the past, how our hearts keep pulling us back to who we used to be. But our God doesn't call us just to remember. Religion calls us to remember. Ritual calls us to remember. Our God calls us to also look forward and to dream. As we stand here in the wilderness of our loss, as we stand here in the wilderness of seminary, it's okay to hold on to those stories and those beliefs, those values of your ancestors, of your traditions, of those things that give you your identity, but don't let them keep you stuck. Don't let your grief or your longing or your comfort keep you from creating something new. Sometimes I like to wonder about how many bushes God had to burn up in the wilderness before a guilt-ridden Moses would finally look up and see one. Or how many times did Jesus have to repeat his words to Peter before Peter stopped ruminating on his remorse and started to dream with Jesus about the church that he was being called to build? How many times do you have to learn something over and over and over again until you finally figure out what it is that God's trying to teach you? In April, I had the opportunity to watch a beautiful and courageous friend of mine stand on a stage in front of hundreds of strangers and tell the story of how she became an artist. The line that stuck with me, that I couldn't shake from my being, was this moment when she talked about how in the loss of her child, an early birth, late in second trimester, she found herself creating art as an act of resistance, as an act of defiance against failure, saying, "This body can create." And I remember the way she said it, knees bent, arms grabbing onto the creativity within her womb, as if she was saying, demanding life in the face of death, demanding resistance. This body can create. See, that's the thing about the wilderness. It's this liminal space where we're sometimes put between the spot of life and death, and sometimes that's the place where we can hear and see God the clearest. I've been thinking about that moment, those words of my friends, for days, for months actually, and I couldn't figure out exactly why. And then these verses from Isaiah kept coming up over and over again until I finally started to figure something out. You see, I had also had a miscarriage. And while it didn't come with the trauma that comes with a loss later in pregnancy, I have learned that in motherhood, whether you lose your baby at 7 weeks like I did or at any other time, you are united in that loss. Something cracks open inside you, something deep within your womb that connects you to every other woman in human history who ever will or ever has known the agony and joy of creating life inside her body. A couple of weeks ago at the Mixed Methods Preaching Conference, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr. taught us that sometimes it takes a day, a year, or even a decade to find the sermon in a single raindrop. For me, it took 4 years. 4 years to recognize that in the midst of grief from infant loss, I found myself raw and most open to the future. And that was the time, I just realized, that was the time when I finally accepted a life in ministry. That my call was my own declaration of resistance. It's as if my call to ministry was my way of saying, this body can create. And saying yes to this call is what took me away from a community that I love and that I long for, and it's what brought me to the wilderness of seminary, and it's what will take me into the next new thing, I pray, I hope. It's just taken me a while to see that there are streams in the wilderness. Our God is a God who calls us to remember, and our God is a God who calls us to look forward, to dream, and to see. So what new thing is God calling you to see?
The Lord of sky and sky, I have heard my people cry, all who dwell in deepest sin, my hand will stay. I will make the stars of night, I will make the darkness bright, who will bear my life. Each
As we gather here today, inspired by the word, the smells, the sight, the sounds, the beauty of all that God has created, we gather to remember once again. We gather to this table to be inspired and to find sustenance and a stream that reminds us of what God has created each of us to do. In whatever that call to ministry of creation is for you. And on that night, when Jesus sat with his disciples, he said to them, "This is my bread. This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And he broke it. And in the same way, he took the cup and said, "This represents the new covenant in my blood. Each time you drink, do so in remembrance of me." May we pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is to heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. The table is open.
singing from the blue Gather book, which is found in your pews. If you would please open your book to page 775, we will be singing Go Make a Difference.
Our benediction is an adaptation of a Nahua poem from Mexico, and it is titled, "We Need to Walk Alone." Sometimes I feel that we expect the arrival of a person who can do anything, who knows everything, and who will help us solve all of our problems. Nevertheless, this individual that we are waiting for, that can do anything, will never come, because they live in us. They walk with us, even sleep with us. But the good news is that they are waking. They are waking because you are the one that you've been waiting for. So as you go in peace, as you bless somebody on the way out, please know that the wilderness is a place of growth. The wilderness is a place where you can find God, see God's light and his purpose. And we ask that you all take this experience with you and carry it on. God bless you all.
Amen.